Hello, my name is Henry Abramson. I'm really glad that you've decided to watch this video, which is accompanying my newest book, The Kabbalah of Forgiveness. The Kabbalah of Forgiveness is a commentary on a 16th century classic of Jewish spirituality known by the Hebrew title Tomer Devorah by Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. And what I'd like to do in this introductory video is tell you a little bit about the original book and a little bit about the original author, and then we'll wrap it up, and in the next video we'll be able to actually get into the text itself. So first of all, the Kabbalah of Forgiveness, that's my title for the first chapter of this really remarkable book, which essentially deals with the 13 different levels of God's mercy and how those can be applied to human relationships. Meaning, in traditional Jewish thought, God is merciful in 13 different ways. In Hebrew, the Yud Gimel Midos of Rachamim. And according to the thought of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, these 13 ways can be emulated by humans on the planet here in a very, very effective way. It's a dramatically powerful book, very original and highly influential, and it's had a great impact on my life. And even though I wouldn't say that I've become such a tremendously forgiving person, but it really has helped me in my relationships with my family, my community, my co-workers, and so on. And I'm sure it's a book that will make a big difference to you as well. So what exactly is this book? It fits within two distinct sort of categories of Jewish thought in the corpus of Jewish literature. First of all, it is really a work of Kabbalah. And secondly, it is a work of Musar. Let's define what those two terms are. Kabbalah is the esoteric, mystical teachings of Judaism, which are enshrined in many books like the Zohar, the Sefer HaBahir, many other books like that. And it deals with, sort of the structure of the universe, the nature of creation, really big, fantastic, kind of mind-boggling thoughts. And normally in Jewish thought, this kind of material is reserved for the elite. There's actually a ban that was put on the study of Kabbalah that it was limited to anyone, for example, who was over the age of 40, which I made it for a while now. And they also had to have tremendous background in the traditional revealed Torah, which means the Chumash, the first 5 books of Moses, the Talmud, and so on. And for most of human history, only the elite studied, really highly educated people studied the Kabbalah. A lot of that changed, for example, in the 18th century with the innovation of the Hasidic movement, but that's outside the scope of our discussion here. Tomer Devorah, the book under discussion here, actually is kind of an exception to the rule, however, and it has been so recognized by luminaries such as Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and many others who have advocated the study of this specific book. Even though it is really suffused with Kabbalistic information, they have highly recommended the study of this book, particularly during the penitential month of Elul, which immediately precedes the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and of course during those 10 days of repentance in particular. That's because that season of the year is traditionally associated with forgiving others so that we may ask God for God's forgiveness as well, and so therefore it's a book that has somehow evaded the traditional ban. Well, actually, I shouldn't say somehow. There's a lot of really good reasons why it is considered exempt, but we're not going to get into them in this video. The other genre that this particular book belongs to is that of Musar, which is a very old tradition in the Jewish literary corpus, and it deals with strategies for ethical self-development. Some of the older texts include passages in the Bible itself, the classic collection Pirkei Avot, which is a 2nd century collection of the older teachings of rabbis. It goes through books like Orchot Tzadikim, Mesilat Yesharim, many, many very famous books. What's really unusual, though, about Tomer Devorah is it takes a Kabbalistic approach to ethical development, which is really quite distinct from any other text, and it set a whole new direction in Musar literature from the 16th century onward. The author is one of the most amazing figures of the great Safat circle, an amazing explosion of Jewish creativity and spiritual activity that occurred in the northern Israeli city of Safed, or Tzfat in Hebrew, in the 16th century. He had a very short life, but in that short life he was extremely prolific, wrote a lot of tremendously influential works of Kabbalah like Pardes Rimonim and so on, a commentary on the Zohar as well, and in fact he attracted one of the greatest Kabbalists to come visit him in Tzfat and be his student, the great Arizal, or Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, who came specifically to be a student at the feet of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, eventually went on to eclipse his own teacher in fame, and is a very highly influential Kabbalist, certainly the most influential Kabbalist of the late medieval period. And in this book, what he really wants to do is he wants to try and describe the concept of v'halachta b'derachav in Hebrew, and you shall walk in his ways, meaning you shall imitate God. There's actually a Latin theological term for this as well, imitatio Dei, or the imitation of God, which has a very long tradition in Jewish scholarship. And basically what the book wants to address is specifically the way in which God interacts with the universe from creation and onward is through these 10, shall we call them, vessels known as sfirot. I'm not going to go into great detail on what these sfirot are and how they work, partially because I have no idea. I'm only like just a novice in this myself, but more importantly because we're going to try and keep these lectures to the Musar level of understanding how that applies to us in reality. For example, these 10 sfirot deal with kindness, severity, beauty, all kinds of things like that. How are we supposed to use these characteristics in our relations with others? Don't worry, as we go through the videos, it'll be much clearer for all of you. I encourage you to go look at the website, which has been set up specifically to support these videos and the text, and there you'll get actual samples of the text as well, and it'd be great if you want to print them out or split your screen and you can look at them in Hebrew or in English while I'm talking. So basically, the Kabbalah of Forgiveness, which is my title for the book, which is really only the first chapter of Tomer Dvorah, deals with these 13 levels of forgiveness. We're going to start with the first video in just a few moments. Just click on the next video in this playlist, and I hope you find it as moving as I do. Thank you very much for watching.